What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing Fortnite Chapter 5 Season 2 and giving my thoughts, what I enjoyed, what I didn't enjoy about this season. As always, if you guys do find this video interesting, informative, helpful, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, comment down below what you would rate this season out of 10, and if you would like to use my creator code in the item shop when getting Season 3's Battle Pass, that would be much appreciated. So, for starters, we're going to talk about the map changes because I feel like this is always the thing that I'm most excited about when it comes to a new Fortnite season. I think a lot of other players are as well. Just looking back on the history of the game, people tend to talk about seasons in terms of map changes. So this season, we got the Greek god POIs being added. We got Underworld, Grimgate, Mount Olympus, and Brawler's Battleground. And I think these POIs are all like pretty solid. I don't enjoy landing at all of them. But one of the main things that I look for in map changes is just that we get some map changes. Like, not everybody is going to enjoy every POI. That's just kind of the way it goes. And these POIs, I feel like, mostly filled out areas that weren't really populated before. Not really populated, but there wasn't that much on the map before. I think we lost Ritzy Riviera and Hazy Hillside, and those were the only POIs that we lost. I could be incorrect, but I think that's how it was. And we got 4 new ones. 2 biomes, different sides of the map. I think it was pretty good. I also really like that while each of these POIs were boss POIs, they changed the boss encounters to be something that you had to activate rather than just having NPCs there from the moment you land, so you could kind of like clear the POI, loot up a bit, and then start the boss if that's something you want to do. You don't just land in a POI, immediately get targeted by NPCs and stuff and have to hear music. So I really liked that change. And overall, I think the map changes this season were solid. Could have been a lot better, but we'll kind of get to that later on in the video. For the loot pool changes this season, we also got a good amount. They added the Warforged AR, the Gatekeeper Shotgun, the Huntress DMR, and the Harbinger SMG, as well as the Greek god items like the Wings of Icarus, the Hades Chains, and the Zeus Lightning. During the season, we got the Hand Cannon, the Midas Drum Gun, and the TAC AR. And then we also got a lot of mythics that we'll get to later on in the video. And one nice thing about the loot pool changes this season, that most of these weapons were pretty viable. Like the hand cannon, solid, not that popular though. The drum gun and the TAC AR I feel like really weren't that great, but like the Warforged AR is really solid. The Gatekeeper Shotgun, incredible. The Huntress DMR, really good. And then the Harbinger SMG is also solid, but it's not my preferred SMG. And what really makes a Fortnite season disappointing is when there's little to no map changes, and then the loot pool changes that are made also don't really change up the gameplay. Like if they had 3 new guns and they're all terrible and no one wants to use them, like they might as well have not added them, you know? But a lot of the weapons they added were really good, or at least usable in certain instances. Like I think the DMR isn't a lot of people's preferred weapon for like really long range, but it's like very good to use. And it's like not, it doesn't feel terrible to use because of its like really fast like bullet travel speed and like minimal drop. So I feel like the DMR has like a niche carved out for it, even if it isn't the best. So I think they did a good job on the loot pool changes this season. And we did get not a significantly different. We got a pretty different meta this season than we did last, which helps kind of like make the game feel fresh and exciting again, but also make the season kind of stick out in a way, you know? Medallions, I think, were also a lot better this season than last, but Grimgate Medallion was way too good. So if you guys didn't play last season, the medallions would recharge your shield, and then the more medallions you had, the more shield you would regen, and like it would regen to a higher point, or like it would regen faster and to a higher cap. With this season, each medallion grants you a different ability, and I think this is a lot more exciting and a lot more interesting than just regenning shield. Like regenning shield was nice, but like getting a different ability, I feel like makes the game feel different if you have that medallion, you know? And these medallions where Zeus gave you like faster sprint speed and you would get like a 0 gravity jump, which would help negate fall damage. Ares medallion gave you bonus damage, but it was basically as if you had 1 rarity higher of your weapon. So if you had a blue weapon, it would basically be doing the damage of what the purple version of that weapon would be. Grimgate allowed you to regenerate dashes, which was OP. We'll get to that later on in the video. And then Underworld gave you Siphon, so you'd get 50 health or shield upon elimination. I think the three, aside, like, let's get rid of Grimgate for a second. I think the other three were very well balanced and that they were enjoyable to have, but not really like game changing. Like, I didn't feel like I had to go for the Underworld Medallion, but if I had it, like, cool, I get Siphon, now I'm happy. Same with Ares. If I didn't need that extra damage, but if I had it, cool. Zeus, I didn't like because I was bad at shockwaving with it, but I feel like the relative power level of all these medallions is they're nice to have, but they're not like game changing, and it's not really dreadful to fight against them. Grimgate was incredibly overpowered because it allowed you to regenerate dashes over time, and if you had a game end in an area which had no green water, or just the game had gotten to the point where there was no green water in zone, you were probably going to be the only person with dashes, and fighting against somebody with dashes is just not enjoyable at all in my opinion. Like, you just shotgun dash, and it's not fun, especially fighting around the green water. I don't think was fun either. We'll get to that later on in the video. So I feel like Grim Medallion was very good, and if you had if you have like players of similar skill and one has Grim Medallion and one doesn't, I feel like the player with Grim Medallion is just gonna win the fight every time. Like, there's probably gonna be people that comment on this video and say they win several games without Grim, and it's like, yeah, you can win without it, but I feel like if there's other good players in the lobby, they're gonna be going for Grim, and if you don't have it when fighting other like really solid players, they have so many more options in a fight versus you, and it's going to be hard for you to win that fight unless you get very good timing. So I would like medallions. It was one of my least favorite things about last season, the medallions. It's probably been my least favorite thing about Chapter 5 in general. But if all medallions were kind of the relative power level of the other three, where they're kind of nice to have, but not really that game changing and not dreadful to play against, I feel like it would be fine. But we had like those three medallions, I'd put them at like C tier, and then Grim Medallion was S tier. And this created very weird gameplay in the sense that like I felt like I had to land at Grimgate or near Grimgate to like get the medallion, or third party the person that gets the medallion and like get it out of the way earlier on in the game rather than playing against it later. Again, I know there will be people commenting saying they don't get it ever. It's whatever. I know a lot of other good players that feel this exact same way. And with skill-based matchmaking being in the game, a lot of people's lobbies are different, you know? Either way, the person who gets Grim Medallion is a huge threat on the map, and I feel like it made the game a lot about getting Grim Medallion, and that made landing in certain areas just not feel good. Like Classy Courts, one of my favorite POIs, probably my favorite POI on Chapter 5 map, didn't really land there at all this season. Not only does it not have good timing on getting to Grim Gate, but also nobody else is landing there because it doesn't have good timing to get to Grim Gate. Reckless Railway, I think I would have enjoyed a lot more this season without the NPCs there. Didn't really go there at all. Brawler's Battleground, I think I would have liked as a POI. I probably went there like 5 times. The game warped so much around Grim Gate, it feels, this season. And that just wasn't a good thing in my opinion, but I think the way the other medallions were done was very good. For weapon bunkers this season, this was another huge change, was how you get attachments, because last season you would get the mod bench and the vaults. There's no vaults this season, at least in the main vaults. So there would be weapon bunkers that open up in third zone, and then you could go there to customize your weapons. And I thought this initially was like a pretty solid change, but it got kind of irritating as time went on, I think, because one, I don't think weapon bunkers were enjoyable to fight around at all. Like, the fights in and around them were just kind of ratty and boring, I think. 2, it would open up so late into the game. Like, third zone isn't incredibly late, but it's late enough to where most of the lobby is going to be dead already in most public matches. And anytime I talk about anything in this game, it's from the perspective of somebody playing pubs. I don't care about comp, so yeah. Either way, most of the lobby is going to be dead by then. Fighting around them isn't very fun. And then you would also have times where, like, the way I think like 4 would open per game or something like that, you might only have like 1 or 2 that are in the playable zone. And so a lot of conflict would kind of shift to that area at that point in time. And so you would end up in a situation where like maybe you have somebody camping the vault and you're trying to get them out, and then like you just get chain third partied, or you go in to use the vault and then you just get like chain held by other people. Like I said, I don't think the fights around these were very good. And because most of the lobby would be dead by the time you get this, it felt like you were playing a majority of the game without attachments, and that would be fine, I think, if the weapons themselves were enjoyable to use without attachments or with the base floor loot attachments. Like, we're going to take the Warforged there, for example. I really enjoy this gun. I don't enjoy this gun with no scope or the thermal. So like the third person version with Bloom, I didn't enjoy the Warforged AR like that. And the thermal version of the gun, I really didn't enjoy either. So I was basically using a weapon I didn't like until third zone in most games, unless I got lucky and got like a blue or a purple one with like red dot, because that could happen. But for the most part, it wasn't going to happen. And then the same is true of snipers. Like if you have a specific sight on the sniper you really enjoy, I'm fine with the 4x or the thermal, but if I have a red dot sniper, I'm not very good with it, or 1.3. And then the no scope sniper I also found to be terrible. Same with the DMR. I don't want to use a DMR without a sight on it. And like that is the biggest problem with weapon attachments in Chapter 5, in my opinion, is it's an interesting feature, but I feel like the way they've implemented it has just not been good, because the benches have only been in certain areas, and then that really drives the conflict of the game. And then also the floor loot versions aren't enjoyable to use. If the weapons were more enjoyable to use without attachments, I don't think this would be as big of a problem. Or if the floor loot weapons came with better attachments, like last season we had like the Striker AR with 2x, this season we have the Warforged with thermal. Imagine they just had red dots on like the green ones. It would be a lot more enjoyable to just like grab and play, you know, and not worry about it. But like the sight on the AR, I feel like makes a significant difference. And then same with the ranged weapons. Some people also really don't like having a red dot on their shotgun. I don't mind it, but I think that's what they need to do. Either make the mod benches available in more areas. Like imagine just every POI had one. I don't know how that would make things play out, but I'm interested to see. Or make the floor loot weapons spawn with more like viable attachments. They don't have to be the best meta setup, but if my gun has a red dot, my AR has a red dot on it, I'm going to be happier than if it has like a high magnification sight or no sight at all. Or just make the weapons better without attachments. Like the Nemesis AR, I think is great without attachments, honestly. Like if I had to use like no weapon challenge, that would probably be the AR I gravitate to. But I don't want to use it for the most part because I don't enjoy it as much as the Warforged when it comes down to attachments. So I think like doing something with the way weapon attachments are handled would make Chapter 5 a lot better. The mini event for this season, I think, was very good. It's gotten a lot of hate. I feel like the Fortnite community's expectations with events are way too large, but the mini event we recently had with like the lightning striking the Pandora's box and then the dust cloud forming as a result of that was on par with some early Chapter 1 events, in my opinion. I think it was, you know, pretty comparable to the rocket launch or the cube dissolving into Loot Lake or even the butterfly event in Season 6. Like a lot of the early events were really not that big of a deal, and it was like later on in Chapter 2 or like the end event in Season X where it really got like crazy with like cutscenes and everything. So I think the mini event was fine. I'm happy they're doing things like this again to kind of spice up the end of the season, give the community something to talk about and something to look forward to and something to follow, and then also kind of explain some of the map changes and what's going on in the map. For me, I never really cared about the Fortnite storyline. What I cared about was what was going on the map and how it was going to affect the game. When we had the meteors hitting the map and causing craters, when we had the island flying around, when we had I'm trying to think of other ones, but like the map changes were what I cared about, and the way the map changes were explained. The like conflict between like Jonesy and the IO and the 7, I never really cared about that much, to be honest. It was always more about like what was going to happen to the map to me. As far as updates go, I'm going to try to get through this faster because I realize this video has already been pretty long. As far as updates go, I think the updates this season were solid, and it was a lot better paced than last season. There wasn't really any dull, long stretch of time where there was no updates or the game was just super boring, aside from the last week or two, but I think that's just always going to happen. Like, when everybody in the community knows we're a week away from a new season, everyone's just going to be less excited to like play the game and talk about the current version of the game. I think that's just very natural. And we had 3 like major updates that are kind of easily distinctable or like distinct this season. We had like the Midas update, the Avatar event, and then the Star Wars update. And I think the Midas update was solid, brought back Flora's Lava, which was an LTM a lot of people wanted. I didn't really enjoy it back in Chapter 1. I didn't enjoy it this season, but it's just not, LTMs were never really my thing. It's nice to have Midas back on the map along with a lot of the NPCs from Chapter 2 Season 2. It was cool. The Avatar event, not something I really cared about, but the mythics were very good. I feel like Fortnite is in such a weird situation when it comes to collab items and mythics and updates in the game, because if they add something that's terrible, no one cares about it. Look at the Metal Gear update. We got the cardboard box and then that invisibility cloak thing. Neither of those items were that good. People memed them and hated on them for adding a mythic cardboard box as if that was going to change the game and make it more fun. With the Avatar event, the items were very good. The water bending was bad at first, but it got buffed to be insane. The air bending was very good. The earth bending was good. And then some people liked the fire bending, but I think that one was the weakest. Each of them were very solid. And so that's why I'm saying Fortnite is in a weird place, because if they make the items terrible, people complain that the update is lazy and it didn't make the game exciting. If the mythics are good, people complain that the mythics are too good and that the game isn't realistic enough and they're tired of dying to like the cringe ice item or water item, you know? So like, I feel like Fortnite can do no right here, but I thought the Avatar event was solid. It got annoying with people airbending away for sure. I think if it was a little bit shorter, it would have been fine. And then also, I think if waterbending left with the end of the Avatar event, a lot of people would have been more happy about it. I understand why it didn't, because Korra was a part of the battle pass and they needed the waterbending in the game to unlock her or whatever for the challenges. Either way, like, I get why it didn't leave, but I think it would have been better if it did. And then the Star Wars update I also thought was fine. A lot of people hated on it because it wasn't as much content as we got in the past, but this is also kind of goes back to my previous point. People wanted the Force abilities and the Jedi powers, but if we got those, people would have been complaining about how annoying it was to just get like Force pushed at his own endgame, exactly how they did in Chapter 4 Season 2. So I personally liked this Star Wars update just in terms of it not ruining the game for me. Like, I would rather have an update on this caliber than have the Force powers, but that's just kind of my opinion. And then there was also some much needed balance updates this season got, which nerfed the auto shotgun, making it pretty bad at this point, which I think is how it should be, because it's the easiest to use shotgun. That should kind of be its saving grace, as it's more forgiving and easy to use, but it's just not the best. As it was in season 1 of chapter 5, it was just way too good. And then the Reaper sniper rifle got a lot more bullet drop and slower travel speed, making it more difficult to use, which again, I think makes sense, because I think the Reaper sniper, just snipers in general, should be hard to use, high reward. I would rather them be difficult to use and actually be good if used right than just have them be useless, and I'm not the biggest fan of snipers. I still think it should only have 1 bullet per mag though. And I think if both of these changes happened in season 1 of chapter 5, my opinion in that season would have been a lot higher. Imagine midway through the season, they nerfed the auto shotgun and the sniper to where they're at now. Would have really changed the meta up and really changed the game. But as it was now, we had the gatekeeper shotgun already being better than the auto. And then the sniper, I think being nerfed kind of made some room for the DMR to be a really good option as well, because the sniper got more difficult to use and it started spawning less. So the DMR being like basically hit scan, it's not quite hit scan, but it's close. I feel like filled that role nice if you were someone that didn't want to get used to the new sniper changes. And then the Chain of Hades and waterbending were both over buffed in my opinion during these updates, and they became pretty frustrating weapons for a lot of players to deal with for the remainder of the season. So like, that's just kind of how it is. I'm happy that we did get weapon balancing updates to change the meta, but there's going to be some things that are just too good sometimes. Again, I think if waterbending got removed with Avatar update, then a lot of people's opinion of the season would have been much better. And so just for a final recap of what I think was good and bad this season, I think the pacing of content and the updates were a lot better. I really liked the changes to the medallions, making them have unique abilities. And I feel like they were a lot more balanced aside from Grimgate. And I think the meta was a lot better this season than last, even though I still don't think it was the best. It was a massive improvement for me. I think the map changes were solid, and at least like the quantity of map changes. I think the main thing holding the map changes back was just how good Grimgate was, and then that kind of made it the focal point. And then I also think the mini event in the build up to season 3 was really good, and I'm happy they're doing things like this again. For the bad, it's just Grimgate. Grimgate Medallion was too OP, and then I also think fighting around the green water at Grimgate was one of the least enjoyable things I've ever experienced in this game, when you just like consistently get people weak or consistently get them one shot, and then they're just spam dashing away. That fight takes another, like, I don't know, 25-30 seconds. You finally kill them, and then another person comes up, and you just rinse and repeat that over and over again to get the medallion. And then by the time you get the medallion, there's like less than 20 people up. I just didn't like that. And just for me personally, the seasons I've enjoyed most were seasons where there's just a lot of spots on the map I enjoy landing, and different areas on the map I enjoy landing, so the games play out differently. Like, that's just for me what has made seasons more enjoyable than others. And this season, I felt like I kind of settled on either landing Grim Gate, Pleasant Piazza, or Fencing Fields every game. And those POIs are all very close to each other. So the game just got more repetitive for me, especially repetitive and just not enjoyable in terms of how fights around Grim Gate played out. I also think the way weapon bunkers played out were not great, and just how bad some of the weapons feel with no attachments, or like not the great attachment, or not good attachments. Like I said, I'm not expecting a meta setup for my AR the moment I touch the ground, but just having a red dot would make it a lot more enjoyable than having a thermal. And then I also think waterbending was in the game for too long. I'm not the biggest hater of items like waterbending or the Hades chains. I don't really use the Hades chains ever, and I rarely have died to it. I think that's because I often get Grim Gate Medallion or die trying to get it, and then the dashes can kind of counter the melee. But waterbending was definitely annoying to play against, and like, I just know it griefed the game for a lot of people because I read comments about this game a lot, like on my videos and stuff, or like when streaming. So I know like waterbending staying in the game for as long as it did was like a negative for a lot of people. So I think the event this season was solid. Overall, I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. I think it was a good season, but like just not one of the best for me. And this is a massive improvement over Chapter 5 Season 1. I didn't even make a review video for that season because I really did not like it, and I did not have much positive to say about it. Whereas this season, I think, was significantly better than last, even though it's not one of my like top 5 seasons, but like that's fine. We have, I think, almost 30 Fortnite seasons at this point. You know, not all of them are going to be top 5. I think it's very good, and I think without Grim Gate Medallion being as impactful as it was, my opinion on this season might have been like a 9 or a 9.5. But just that medallion being very good, causing me to consistently land in that area and play out fights that I didn't enjoy playing out with weapons that I didn't enjoy using because they were really bad without attachments in some cases. Was what was most tilting about this season for me. But I think it was a really solid season, and I'm excited to see what they do for Season 3. As always, if you guys did find this video interesting, it definitely went longer than I wanted to, but if you did enjoy it, give it a like. Comment down below what you would rate this season or what you liked and didn't like, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.